Yes, you're absolutely right. We recruit in the United Kingdom. There's a subversive group called Common Purpose. It's a sort of Freemasonry with a small f. So these guys are recruited at universities. They're spotted at universities, and they've been brought into the civil service systems, the BBC, and they've got their own style of jargon, their own sort of semi-secret handshakes. So they all sing off the same hymn sheet, and they are the people that actually, who would normally, we would expect in our legal systems, in our political systems, in our civil service systems, to be protecting us from these things by using our constitution. These are the people that have actually been subverted. And let me give you an example which I think will surprise you and surprise your listeners on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm also a member of the Environmental Committee, and bear in mind I re-won my seat in June, so by a very significant margin with an increased majority. Now, I'm not an important man in British politics, and I don't pretend to be, but I'm not totally insignificant. I wrote privately to the Prince of Wales, who believes all this carbon dioxide nonsense, bless his cotton socks. And he believes all this. And I wrote to him personally as an elected representative, a re-elected representative, as a member of the Environment Committee on the European Union, which governs the United Kingdom's entire environment and energy policy. I wrote to him privately at Clarence House and said, please, can I beg you to look more deeply into the science of this, because I don't think you're getting sound advice. And I think that the reason you're not getting sound advice is I think the people close to you are deliberately holding back information. And I said, please, I also beg you on this, Your Royal Highness, if you'd be so kind, would you reply to me personally? Because even if you don't agree with me, even if you don't like what I've got to say, at least I know that this letter was put in front of you. 3 months later, I got a letter from a lackey. Now, I actually don't believe the Prince of Wales saw my letter. Now, I don't know who advises him. I don't know what the situation is, and it's his own fault. I don't have a lot of sympathy. He wants to really actually sharpen his act up. But it does make you wonder, Alex, does it not, how deeply penetrated the entire British and European system has been by these individuals.
Absolutely. Gordon Brown's announcement that doesn't matter, we're going to register everybody's carbon and start the taxes whether you like it or not. How is that marching along, A? And B, how big of a defeat was Copenhagen going down in flames to these people?
Well, of course, not only was Copenhagen a ridiculous shambles, of course, as you saw the limousines driving through the blizzard to get there, and you couldn't invent it, frankly, could you? And the London Times have just said, Giles Corran, I might have mentioned this earlier, says, we're all extremely stupid. The coldest weather that we've had in Arizona, Texas, Korea, China, the United Kingdom and Poland, so on and so forth, the coldest winter for something like 30 or 40 years, and we're all too stupid to understand that that's what global warming does. The trouble is, I think, with politicians, they're so detached, they think we're stupid. They think because we're not proactive necessarily in politics that somehow we're stupid, and we have to somehow let them know that we're not stupid, we don't buy it. But you've got to bear in mind, Gordon Brown, Alex, is actually dysfunctional. He's a dysfunctional individual. He's laughably hopeless. I mean, just looking at
people, men and women, if I saw him in an airport and he wasn't the leader of England, I would think there's something wrong with that man. I mean, he does just, and I don't normally judge a book by its cover, but also his actions. He really comes off as like some kind of freak.
Well, he is a freak, and of course he's never been elected. Just bear in mind, he wasn't elected. He never stood for office. He didn't lead the party. He won the leadership of the UK Labour Party, unopposed, and he's never gone forward for an election, and the people have never judged him. Now, that's our system. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's the situation. So the British has never judged him, but sadly, Alex, we have another vacuous, rather stupid young man waiting in the wings, David Cameron, who takes his tie off and calls himself Dave in order to impress the working classes over here, which doesn't cut any mustard at all. But he's equally stupid and vacuous, but he looks good on television, Alex, so that's all right then, isn't it?
So what's happening in England, I mean, I do see your party and others really starting to gain ground. The people are slowly but surely, at least from afar, and of course you see that from afar here in the U.S., are starting to get it.
To an extent, what's happened recently is that they've disengaged. And they need to re-engage. The polls that we have now are very low. People have stopped bothering to turn out. And that's what we've got to change round. We've got to get people, they've started to not vote for the main parties, but we need to turn that voting in a positive way for parties who are offering something else. And I'm quite sure this happens in America. When I go on the stump talking to people, they agree with everything I say. They say, Godfrey, that's absolutely first class, agree with everything you say. And I say, well, can I rely on your vote at the election? They say, sorry, no, I always vote Conservative. Or Labour. You need a new party, and we've got to get your country out of it, because the new world has to lead us through this, to be honest.
All right, going back
people
briefly,
have got to stop voting Republican and Democrat as a matter of habit.
Absolutely, because that power structure is fully corrupt. But going back here briefly as we go to break, you say you were pulled aside, and I've had other members of the European Union Parliament on who've been openly rebuked. The former leader of your party, told to shut up. They get to call him names, Nigel Farage, but he can't even expose their fraud. And you're saying you were pulled aside and said and told to shut up. I mean, how undemocratic is that?
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? And the same people that took me aside and asked me to sort of calm down in these chambers of debate, which is, I thought, what politics was all about, are the same people who go back to London pretending, that they're batting for Britain. But of course, people will always, it's tribal. Politics is tribal. It's the same probably with Republicans and Democrats. It's sort of tribal. People always revert to type. And we get the politicians we deserve, in the end.
Stay there. That's key. It's like the Cowboys versus the Redskins, or, with your soccer teams, the two big teams against each other. They want to feel like they win by going with the winner.
Hi, this is Alex.